Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Reality Writes. I am author Ellie Alexander. This is the podcast where we talk about all things writerish, readerish, bookish, and whatever else is on our mind. And today I'm here with the tech guy.
The tech guy, as always, with the tech guy.
Right.
No, today's great. I'm feeling really good.
Good.
I ran 2 miles today.
Woo!
I know some people are probably like, really, tech guy, 2 miles? Like, really? Like, trust me, I get it. To some people out there, that's not a lot. And honestly, 2 years ago, to me, that wasn't a lot. That would have been like a warm up. But injury, life, whatever got in the way. I don't know. It's funny. It reminds me of that episode from Castle where he had the poker game with all the famous authors like James Patterson, and they're like, "Really, Castle? 1 book a year? Really?
Right.
Like that's like really, tech guy, 2 miles." But I don't know. It's I'm getting back into running, and I'm at the very beginning, and it feels awesome. The runner's high is real.
The runner's high is real. You heard it here first, darlings. Well, it's kind of a good segue into what we're going to talk about today, because I think sometimes on your runs you listen to audiobooks, and today we're going to do a deep dive into why reading is so important and how you, darlings, can help. This is going to be a bit of a call to action episode because the numbers are real bad with reading right now.
Real bad.
Yeah. I will start out, and then I know that you love stats, so I'll hand it over to you in a minute for stats, but
I'll pepper them in along the way.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. This topic came up, well, I mean, it's something that is always on my mind because reading in the United States is falling off a cliff with kids under 18. It's plummeting. It has been. This is like people have been screaming from the rooftops for a few years and longer. And now we're really seeing the fallout. And it came to light because the London Book Fair was a couple weeks ago. And the head of Pan Macmillan gave a talk about what she thought were the biggest threats to the industry, the book publishing industry as a whole. And I think a lot of people assumed that she would say AI. And her takeaway and talking point to everyone was that the biggest threat to books is the fact that there's a whole new generation coming that doesn't read.
Yeah. And I would like to point out too that you mentioned that the numbers are dropping for kids, but that's true of adults too.
True.
Yes. I've got my first stat of the podcast here comes from the National Literacy Institute, and this is from 2024. So this is a couple of years ago, but a couple of years ago, according to this study that they did, more than half of U.S. adults read below a 6th grade reading level.
Yeah.
Think about how terrible, like 54% of adults in the United States of America read below the equivalent of a 6th grader. And if anybody out there thinks that this doesn't impact them because they know they read above a 6th grade level and all of their friends and their family read above a 6th grade level, let me tell you, you are mistaken. You're sadly mistaken because listen, if half of us can't read above a 6th grade level, that affects everything and everyone in this country. And it needs to change. And you know me, I mean, my nickname is the tech guy. I love gadgets and technology, love them, but they are also ruining us, just from a reading perspective.
Right, because of course, this is a multi-layered issue, right? It's not just one single thing. We can't blame reading falling off a cliff completely on technology, but with this next generation coming up, this is the first generation that was born basically with a screen in their face. And have had access 24/7 to scrolling and streaming and just that constant bombardment of information and videos and all of those things. And then, you throw in a pandemic and just sort of our education system and so many things have fallen through the cracks. But one thing that I thought was really interesting in terms of the takeaway of the keynote from the London Book Fair was that her perspective was also like, okay, well, how do we use that technology to pull readers in? So is it little fun stories within games? One of the big focuses of the industry right now, and this is already happening with a lot of bigger books that have been published, but multi narrators for audiobooks. So you're really getting
Mm-hmm.
almost a radio play experience where instead of just one narrator, you're getting an entire cast and background sounds. So I like the slant that it's not just like, oh, hey, we see technology as the root of all evil. It's like, okay, this is where we're at. How do we try to like find a way in to reading through that too?
Right. And I don't want to vilify technology. Trust me, I'm the last person in the world
Yeah,
that
you
would
don't.
do
Yeah.
that. But and so that's a very good point, because what you just described with the multi-narrator audiobooks and everything, like that harkens back to the radio shows of old, right?
Yeah.
Where people would gather around their radio and listen to these stories being acted out by people. And we like, so it's really nice to see those things starting to make a comeback.
Okay. And then the other piece of that is that kids in general and adults are not reading for enjoyment or pleasure either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's another one that I have a big stat on, actually. That I saw that the National Endowment for the Arts, they said that the share of 13-year-olds who read for fun almost every day. So that
Okay.
that was the almost every day. That has fallen from 27% in 2012 to just 14% in 2023.
Oh,
It's the lowest figure ever recorded. And so I imagine that's only continued to go down. But the other concerning stat is that this study also showed that, meanwhile, the share of those same kids who say they never or hardly ever read for enjoyment jumped from 22% to over 31%
wow.
in the
Yeah.
same time period. I mean, that's just sad. There's so many good stories out there, so many good books.
There's so many good stories and books. And one of the sort of like fallouts that we're seeing from this focus, maybe on screens, is this concept that's now everywhere, which is second screen content. So,
Yeah.
for example, movies are and TV shows, we're seeing this in a lot of media that we consume, are now directing the storyline to basically go to the lowest common denominator and plot point because the directors and writers are assuming like, okay, somebody's on a second screen. They're scrolling while they're kind of half paying attention to this other thing that's happening.
Yeah, and we've seen that actually in a couple of recent movies and TV shows that we have
Oh,
watched, where we're like, why did they just explain that? Like, of course that's what I mean, it was just like, it was so jarring to be like, yeah, we know, we're watching,
yeah.
but it was
It's like
just like,
5 times. Okay, so this person picked me up
right,
and took me to the airport. Yeah, we just saw that happen. Why are you telling us? Oh,
right,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's really concerning. It's also, I mean, not only from just like a society standpoint, from a business standpoint, like publishing, right?
Yeah.
For all the writers out there, if you want to make a living writing, you need people reading, right? So,
Yeah, and
it,
I mean, we sort of know that we're preaching to, the choir
yes,
here because, of course,
right.
all of the darlings listening are avid readers, but the problem is, like and I think this myself because 'cause I'm in my bubble of, like, I'm around everyone who's bookish. That's great for right now, but what does reading look like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years?
Right.
The entire industry could look completely different.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I would hope that if somebody's listening to a podcast called Reality Rights, that they themselves are, a pretty avid reader.
You know. One might think.
Probably, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there are a lot of benefits to reading that we haven't touched on,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Right. Exactly. Okay. So, like, we've got the pretty staggering facts that you've shared. We know that reading is falling off a cliff. We know that there's a whole generation coming of age that is not reading for pleasure, and also reading below grade level. But the thing about reading is it is so critical for so many things. The number one way that we build empathy is through reading. The way we build our creative muscle is through reading. The way we make connections, again, through reading. So it does speak to such a broader global cultural impact that we're going to see if this trend continues.
Right, and the connection piece is huge. I mean, if you think about the community we built here, just
Yeah.
with not only Reality Rise, but just your writing in general, things like the Ashland Mystery Festival, all the book talks you go to when people are coming up and like, oh, it's so great to see you again, and it's just like if you took reading out of the mix, all of that goes away, right? No one is connecting to the same degree through other mediums. Not in any, I guess, super like creative way. When it comes to reading, you just get kind of the like perfect storm of benefits.
Hmm. Well, and I think the other thing is just in terms of like escapism, a way to kind of bring your own internal temperature, your blood pressure down. Like you've talked so much because you work in like, the tech industry. It's really stressful, and reading can be a salve for that, and a true way to just kind of center yourself and take yourself out of that a little bit.
Yes, and I have a stat for that, and
Woo!
it is actually one of the reasons this particular study, because I do read these things, I read them, um, and this one was like it hit close to home, and this is kind of a did you know moment. Did
Mm.
you know, and this is according to the university a study that the University of Sussex did. So shout out to the Brits.
Thanks, UK.
Uh, did you know that 6 minutes of reading cuts stress by 68%?
Whoa. No.
It's
Is that right?
it yeah, it's more effective than listening to music or
Mm.
even going for a walk. So uh, and it's because when you read, your brain disengages from the daily problems. So if you've had a tough day at work, if you have like relationship stuff going on, if whatever it is, political stuff, um, all the
Oh.
things,
Yeah.
yeah. When you pick up a book and you start reading, your brain shuts all that off because it's focused on this content that you're consuming. And especially if it's good writing and the story is engaging and creative, it like allows your muscles to relax, your blood pressure to drop, which is good for me. So I couldn't believe it though. 6 minutes is all it takes to cut your stress by 68%.
So, I mean, darlings, this is if you get any pushback for reading, you can just be like, "Look, I am working on my health right here.
Right, right. My doctor said I had high blood pressure. I have to read more.
I must read for 12 hours a day."
Right, right. No, and this year especially, I have like I upped my goal for reading, and I'm already on book 7 for the year. And we're mid to late March right now. So for me, that's huge. And again, I know there are people out there that are like 7 books, tech guy, really?
Your 2 miles and your 7 books.
A couple of them have been really long, though. I will say, like the book I'm reading right now is over 600 pages. So, your mileage may vary, I guess, but it's I love it, and it is really a big stress relief for me. Reading, just in general.
Well, yeah, and I think, to kinda dovetail on that, there has been kind of this pressure cooker sometimes of Bookstagram and feeling like, oh, I have to turn my reading into a competition with someone else to be like, oh,
Right.
well, like you're saying, you only read 7 books. Well, I read 12 and that kind of mindset. And what I think is interesting is I'm really seeing a shift in that over the last year or so. But and but and
But and
this all
but
but
and
and this also ties into sort of the judgment sometimes around reading of someone being like, "Oh,
yeah.
you're just reading a cozy mystery," or, "Oh, you're reading a rom-com," or, "Oh, you're just reading a fun sci-fi." Like, no, we need to be reading for pleasure or enjoyment, whatever that is in whatever form, and to really, like, reclaim that as readers, to be like, it doesn't matter if,
Right.
the woman next to me or somebody else on Bookstagram is reading 500 books this year. If I'm reading 7 and that's helping me, aces, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And your patrons out there who are listening know my feelings on this. That is a very touchy subject for me because I I tend to enjoy books of the sci-fi and fantasy nature. And
Right.
those are not literary masterpieces according to some, I would say.
Objective
And
much, but
and
okay. Yeah.
and I joined a book club at work, and the first book we read was God of the Woods, and it was a mystery. But you told me after I started reading, and I had all these questions, and we were talking about it, and you said, "Oh no, but it's considered a literary mystery," and I'm like, "What? That word just like so." Like, what does that mean? Like that just sounds like
Literary.
pretentious. And and for people who enjoy that, that is wonderful. But to your point, nobody should judge anybody else by what they read. If you're reading, you're reading. Like that is it. We're all reading. That's why there are millions and millions of books out there.
Right, and I think, the takeaway today should be that, and this is gonna probably segue us into why we are bringing a call of action to you, darlings, is that we should all be reading more. We should be encouraging other people to read more, and we should be finding ways to actively be engaged in helping young readers. So, off the cuff, there are a few things that I think are easy wins. Number one is reading aloud. If you have young kids in your
Yeah.
life, if you're a parent or a grandparent, I know it sounds so simple, but it's not necessarily easy, right? We all have busy lives and we're working and, screens are part of that and all the other things. But if you can even take 15 minutes a day to sit down and read aloud to a young child, that makes a critical difference in their literacy and their enjoyment of reading, right? Because that's how you and I, certainly became the readers that we are today because we had people reading aloud to us, and story time was like my dream. Like I couldn't wait for library day at school. So figuring out ways to engage with young readers is my number one call to action for you.
Get the kids hooked on books.
Get them hooked on books. Let's go. Book pushers.
Yeah. No, that one of the things that I was so proud of for a long, well, still am, I guess, but I was on the with Scott, little tiny. Well, he wasn't tiny; he was a big, chubby baby, but he was a baby, and I was on the cover of the Vancouver Public Library's you know, baby like story time brochure that he handed out for a while there. That was pretty cool. And he loved going to story time, like all the kids did that were there. It was so fun to go and be with them while one of the librarians was reading a book out loud, and they loved it. They were eating it up. They didn't even understand the words, but it was just the activity of being amongst those books and hearing a story being said, the cadence of the words and the expression of the reader and everything that they just and you know, that kid now, well, he's not a kid anymore, but he consumes books like most kids consume candy.
That's right.
So,
We did our job. Well, I think that's another great way to get involved is reach out to your local library. So many of them have volunteer programs. So that would be a great entryway. I love the organization Reading is Fundamental, and we can link to it, I think, in the show notes, right? They have volunteer opportunities all across the United States where you can get involved. There are lots of also organizations like Rotary clubs that will go and read to kids. Your public school has all kinds of opportunities for you to get involved and volunteer. I used to go read aloud once a week at Sky Guy's school. So any way that you can actively get engaged in helping this next generation get excited about reading, I think is fantastic.
yeah, for sure. And to tie it back to that technology thing, again, we were talking about this earlier. We have apps that help us limit our screen time, but I've never heard of an app that is out there to help limit your reading time.
Right? Yeah.
And you think about that for a second. I mean, that's kind of wild, right? I mean, we have apps to help us limit a lot of things, how much we watch screens, how much we consume, all of those things. There's nothing out there. The only apps out there are to track how much you've read, not to tell you to read less, but to help you read more. So I think that's very telling.
I
Right
think
there.
that's pretty profound. No, it actually gives me goosebumps. It's true because there's no like con of reading for too long, I don't think. Short of like maybe you'll be sleepy the next morning if you stay up too late. But like please let your kids sneak reading right now. Like
I mean, get outside and take a walk every once in a while for sure. But you know what? Listen to an audiobook while you do it. There you go. Win-win.
There you go. Dun, dun, dun.
If reading for 6 minutes lowers your stress by 68%, if you add walking on top of that, man, you are going to lead a stress-free life.
You are going to lead a stress-free life. And there is also so much interesting new research about crossing the brain hemispheres. So if you're walking and listening to something on audio, like that's really good for your brain health too.
Just watch the curbs. They get a little tricky sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially for me, that's true. But my other thing that I would encourage you darlings to do is to support your local indie bookstores because they're doing a lot of events for kids. Story time at local indie bookstores is free. Like you don't have to buy the book from them. I mean, please do if you're financially able and support them, but like find out what other ways that you can be involved in an indie bookshop. I also personally started a Mysteries and Mocktails book club here with my local independent bookstore in California, Lee's Books in Sunnyvale. And it's created the most wonderful community that has like gone and blossomed on its own. So if you're at home and you're thinking, okay, I don't have a book club, I don't have a local indie bookstore near me, like how do I get involved? This is your sign to start something. Like even if it's reaching out to a neighbor who you don't know or doing a post on Nextdoor and saying, hey, anyone who wants to read this book, let's meet at this coffee shop. Like find ways to create a bookish community in your world in any way, shape, or form.
Right. A bookish third space, right?
Yeah.
Third space. What is it?
Mm-hmm.
Third space. Yeah. And the one thing I'd say about indie bookstores, I mean, besides just supporting small businesses being better for everyone, and I know this doesn't go for all indie bookstores, but there are many out there. I know Lee's is one of them. Books are expensive. Like we get that. Like books can cost a lot, and that's where libraries come in handy. But independent bookstores, a lot of them also have like used books, and they have buyback programs. So if you buy a new book, you can take it back in if it's in good condition and get credit toward the purchase of another book at an indie bookstore. So, and the other thing that I will say about pretty much every independent bookstore that at least that we've had experience with, which now after many, many years of doing this is a lot of indie bookstores.
Yeah.
They love to support anything to do with reading. So
Yes.
if you've got an idea for something to get the community more involved in reading, to get more books in the hands of kids and everything, talk to your local independent bookstore owner, and you'd be surprised. Like they probably would jump at the chance to get involved and help out. I mean, they're not going to give you millions of dollars of books for free, but because they are a business, and they are trying to make a living, but they will definitely be supportive of anything that any ideas that you have that will help increase literacy within the
Yeah.
community.
And most of them, like the vast majority of indie bookshops, do support literacy in the community. I'm thinking of Vintage Books in Vancouver, Washington,
Yeah.
that they donate books for free for any school kid who comes in. And when Sky Guy was in elementary and middle school, we were trying to round up books, and they were immediately like, "Here, we're in. Like, how can we help?" So, yeah, I mean, I think any way that you can collaborate and create community around books is a good thing. We have too many books in our house, if there is such a
Yes,
thing.
it's
So
true.
we've been trying to make a commitment to filling local libraries whenever we can. Little free
Little free
libraries.
libraries. Yeah.
Yeah,
Little
not
free
little.
libraries.
Sorry. Don't take your books. Well, I
Yeah.
mean,
You
libraries
can.
do friends of library sales, but little free libraries. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just in case, I'm sure most, if not all, listeners out there, darlings out there, are familiar with little free libraries, but those are the little like cases that you see out in front of some people's homes that have books in them. And it's free. You can come take as many books as you want, leave as many books as you want. And it's just a great way for the community to share books for free, and to kind of spread the love. So again, going back to that, the whole, books can be expensive thing. It's great to kind of spread the wealth, I guess. And so
Yeah.
we do when we go on long walks, which is like, every weekend together, we'll take a look at our bookshelves and go, okay, I mean, what last time we discovered we had 3 copies of the same book, like
I
on
know.
different
Right.
bookshelves. And we were like, what, why,
Okay.
why,
Yeah.
what happened? At
Yeah.
some point we acquired 3 copies of the same book. So we took those and we dropped them into various little free libraries that we encountered along the way.
That's right. Yeah. And I guess to wrap it up, darlings, in the comments, we would love to hear from you. Like, what other ideas do you have for creating community around books, to getting this next generation excited about books? I want to hear
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Or things that you're already doing.
Yeah.
Share those in the comments, because this is such a connected community of readers and writers. It would be great, and it would probably help other people in different communities to implement those ideas. And again, just get everyone hooked on books.
Hooked on books. That's our takeaway. You get a
Get
book,
hooked on
you
books.
get a book. Hook those
Exactly.
kids on books.
That's right. Right. There are a lot of other bad things they can get hooked on, but books is not one of them.
Touche.
So,
All right. Well, on that note, until next time, and happy reading. Thank you for being readers in the world. You're doing the work.
That's right. Until next time, happy reading.